Good afternoon. Welcome to Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater. I'm Christopher Ostrom. I'm WUT's Producing Artistic Director. And on behalf of all of us here, thank you for joining us today. With the free exchange of ideas being a cornerstone of democracy, we are especially proud to create a space and create a forum where art and ideas can discuss current events and hopefully find a path to the future. So thank you for being part of this conversation today. Before we start, please take a moment to locate the emergency exit nearest to your seat. In the event of an emergency, please go to that exit, then away from the building, or as directed by a member of our staff. This is also a great time to turn off those cell phones, watch alarms, any digital device you might have on you or with you that could light up or make noise during the performance. It's my honor to welcome to this stage the cast of Revere Resists and director Jeff Zinn.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. We're impressed by you guys. Oh my God. And you brought your signs. I love it. Yeah, show them loud and proud. That's amazing. I'm really grateful that you're here. I want to start by introducing the cast. From left to right, we have David Fraioli, Carol Lynn, Louis D. Wheeler,
don't forget the D,
Amanda Collins, and I must thank Chris Ostrom for making the space available to us today. Incredibly generous of him to do that, and all of the support staff here at Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater. I want to thank, and I will be introducing you later to Jim Carroll, who's here, and he's going to lead our discussion after this very short play. Jim is one of the co-authors of the piece you're about to hear, and he's a key figure in Writers for Democratic Action. Writers for Democratic Action. Do I have that right, Jim? Yes? And has organized these readings, and they're happening all over the country. I want to greet our audience who are tuning in by live stream from all over the world, literally tens of people who are tuning in today, and we're so grateful that they are. Just before we start the show, we have breaking news. We're winning.
Yeah.
We are winning. It may not seem like it every day. They're so big, but the hyenas are nipping at the heels in the tens of thousands and millions, and we will bring them down.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks again. Stick around for the discussion after the reading. Now I'm very proud to present Revere Resists. Thank you.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year.
We remember. Revere rode at night on the 18th of April, last night, 250 years ago.
But on the 19th, 250 years ago today, came the climax.
Welcome, friends.
Welcome.
To this semi-quincentennial celebration of the start of the American Revolution, the birthday, in effect, of our liberal democracy. And why should we not gather here to celebrate the past? He said to his friend, "If the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, Hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light. 1, if by land, 2, if by sea.
And I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and to arm.
And up and armed they did. Did you also love the story of the Minutemen and their tri-cornered hats and breeches and muskets, their fifes and drums?
The red-coated British.
The British are coming! The British are coming!
Paul Revere never said that. They were all British, including Paul Revere. Listen, they were all subjects of the king, you know. In fact, Paul Revere said, he cried, the regulars are coming. The regulars are coming, you know, as in regulation, you know, or should I say the law, you know, like these patriots, like more like law breakers, you know, as in traitors.
Pardon me, who are you?
You would call me probably one of the bros. That acronym DOGE, I think, is a little dodgy. In fact, since regulations and deregulations are essential to our campaign, we like to call ourselves the regulars. Joe, you'll get the email saying to expect me?
We're celebrating the ordinary heroes of the Battle of Lexington-Concord.
The basic American virtue which revealed itself that day.
Why does it feel dangerous just to lift up basic American values?
Dangerous? I am Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I wrote this poem in 1860. Yes, dangerous. I deplored slavery, but I also dreaded what I could see coming, a civil war in which 750,000 Americans died.
Proportion of population today would be 7 million.
I wrote this poem to invoke the moral clarity and collective strength of those first patriots.
Moral clarity and collective strength that we need today. Some of us also
Dread what we see coming.
Yeah, of course, with good reason. Paul Revere, I mean, he may not have announced the Civil War, but his story was no nursery rhyme. In the battle he began, 155 people died, 200 were wounded, mauled, amputees, there were widows, orphans, neighbors set against each other, people with like death sentences that were survivors, death sentence hanging over their head. All that carnage that I'm talking about, that is what you are celebrating today with your little poem.
Should we even be doing this?
Of course we should.
Oh, God.
This is America. We're still free to gather. Look
you're-
at all these folks right here.
You're all fired. You're all fired. Listen, did you fill out your performance reviews? You know, the 5 things you accomplished this week? No, of course you didn't, because you didn't fucking accomplish anything. That's why you're fired.
Fired, right. And what if we get detained, deported, disappeared, have our green cards revoked?
My parents brought me to the U.S. when I was 3, seeking education and opportunity for me, their only daughter. Yeah. I didn't know I was an unauthorized immigrant until I tried to get a driver's license. All my friends could drive when we were 16, but not me. Now I'm married to an American and have been working in a restaurant we love as a waitress. But I was arrested in a raid and am facing deportation to a place I don't remember, where I don't know anyone and I don't speak the language.
I served in the United States Navy during the Gulf War and then ran an auto shop in Wisconsin. I was a husband and the proud father of 3 daughters. But a month ago, I was deported to Laos, a country I haven't visited since I left at 10. My wife and children are in crisis. America loved me when I went to war for her, but now...
What protections do we have?
Please, I mean, what protections do you need as long as you're not breaking any laws?
From violence, from being disappeared for protesting, from being fired, from losing medicine and care.
From having no autonomy over our own bodies, from being forbidden to gather or to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They're all here, aren't they? Honoring and living up to what this country means. Gathering and speaking. Protest is American.
A hurry of hoofs in a village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark. and beneath from the pebbles in passing, a spark struck out by a steed that flies fearless and fleet.
Protest, yes, is American. That's why we pardoned the January 6ers.
Ah.
Wait. I mean, that was a day of love. They were patriots and they were peace. Hey, what's funny? They were patriots and they were peaceful. I mean, they were treated like the worst criminals in history. They were exercising their right to protest.
Protest an election with violence?
That was a rigged election. And what violence? What violence?
Officer Brian Sicknick of the Capitol Police died of strokes after being assaulted by rioters that day.
Yeah, stroke. Okay. Jonas Parker died after being bayoneted by British troops.
What's your point?
Freedom takes sacrifice. And only some protest is righteous. Listen, all federal funding is going to stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned and permanently sent back to the country that they came from. Students will be permanently expelled, and if we deem it so, they'll be arrested.
I thought you said protest isn't illegal.
I'm a PhD candidate in bioscience at an Ivy League university. I happen to be Jewish. I've watched legitimate fears of a rise of anti-Semitism on American campuses be turned into blanket justifications for the silencing of pro-Palestinian voices, for unprecedented assaults on academic freedom, for the abrupt cancellation of federal grants on which research like mine depends, not to mention the shutting down of criticisms of the killing of civilians in Gaza. The weaponization of anti-Semitism by the Trump administration does not make me safer as a Jew. It insults me as a Jew.
Masked or plain-clothed agents of immigration and customs enforcement are disappearing students and professors, legally documented immigrants whose only offense is legally protected speech. The administration calls people enemy aliens, and court interventions prove to be too little and too late to prevent such deportees, shackled and bound in leg chains, from being whisked out of the country. A chill descends on democracy. They don't call their deportation airline ICE Air for nothing.
I was a proud associate at a great American law firm, only 4 years out of law school. I looked forward to a great career. When I waited in vain for my senior partners to denounce the demand from our own Justice Department that we turn over our records of our firm's DEI efforts, and then when my partners agreed to do so, I submitted my resignation. My pride had turned to shame. When did the word diversity become obscene? The word justice a joke? When did they take the law out of lawyer?
Is this being recorded?
Oh, God.
Why? Do you want it recorded, or are you afraid?
Both.
It was ordinary people who stood together 250 years ago, taking on the most powerful king in the world. They were frightened farmers and blacksmiths and clerks, people just like all of us. They alone were trembling with fear. Together, they were resolute. So yes, let there be a record.
Okay, in case you didn't hear me before, all federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows protests of which we disapprove. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. Students will be permanently expelled. If we decide a crime, they will be arrested.
I thought you said protest isn't illegal.
It was 2 by the village clock when he came to the bridge in Concord town. He heard the bleating of the flock and the twitter of birds among the trees.
And one was safe and asleep in his bed, who at the bridge would be the first to fall, who that day would be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball.
The Old North Bridge in Concord, where the first shot of the American Revolution was fired,
The so-called shot heard around the world.
is beautifully maintained as the Minuteman National Historical Park by rangers of the National Park Service.
You're fired.
Or it was. I'm Sam. Along with hundreds of National Park employees, I lost my job today. This also happened to thousands in other agencies. We are unemployed, I lived in park housing, and so I'm suddenly homeless. I spent my career as a park ranger, welcoming visitors, rescuing injured hikers, training young rangers, restoring trails. My heart is broken for all of us, for the job I loved, for our parks, for all that used to be national and shared among us. So much is damaged, and so much more will continue to be damaged. I don't recognize our country anymore, or the parks that were so central to it.
Imagine America with blooming, beautiful public parks, clean water, and adequate food for all.
We have adequate food.
14 million kids are hungry here, and even more abroad. We used to feed everyone we could.
I was born the child of Afghanistan refugee doctor in Pakistan, where my family lived in a refugee camp. We had fled Afghanistan's war, leaving our home and loved ones behind. Survival was a daily struggle, but one thing gave us hope. International aid, especially supplies stamped with the words USAID, from the people of America. I still remember white sacks of wheat and flour, cans of cooking oil, and school supplies. They weren't just items. They were the difference between going to bed hungry and having a meal, between a life of uncertainty and the possibility of an education. I once pointed to the words U.S. aid from the American people, and I asked an elder what they meant. He said, the kindness of American people, people I had never met, from a country I had never seen, making sure we had food on our plates and books in our hands.
Imagine.
Those people should fend for themselves.
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry.
I'm hungry.
Jesus Christ.
Later, I immigrated to the U.S., eager to give back to the country that had shaped my life. I started from the bottom, taking whatever work I could until I started a career in finance at a nonprofit that implements U.S. aid fund programs worldwide. Over 10 years, I have worked on projects that improve the lives of the globe, programs that help people in need and also reinforce America's position as a leader in democracy, security, and economic development. I have paid tens of thousands of dollars in taxes, proud to embrace the American spirit of paying it forward. Now, the president's executive orders threaten to dismantle these life-changing programs. Cutting foreign aid assistance isn't just about balancing budgets. It means real people will go hungry. Families will lose access to education, food, health care. Somewhere in the world, a child like me, who might have been saved, will instead be left with nothing. My children, American citizens, ask me at bedtime if I will lose my job or be deported. I can't answer.
America needs to stop throwing money at other countries.
What about our country? I proudly served in the U.S. Army Special Forces for 14 years. During a raid on an Al-Qaeda compound in Helmand Province, my Iron Giant, what you folks call tanks, got hit by an indirect. I was lucky to get out with nothing more than a TBI, traumatic brain injury. Mystery wound, but enough to fucking ruin my life. The only ones who've given a shit for me since I was dusted off are my VA docs and nurses and the sweet ladies who answer the phones. And now I read that eliminating waste from government means laying off 80,000 VA workers. Right. Eliminating waste. That would be me.
Sorry, that's a sad story. But money it's a limited resource, and it has to be managed carefully.
Elon Musk has $354.8 billion.
He earned that. It's the American dream.
Plutocracy is the American dream.
It's more like all men and women eventually are created equal.
Free to write, think, speak, and read.
You are free. You can say or think anything you want here.
All grants from the National Endowment for the Arts require compliance with Trump's anti-DEI, anti-trans orders. All projects must patriotically celebrate the 250th anniversary. Can we write what we want?
Yeah, as long as it celebrates America. And if you want a grant, you're asking for our money, so you got to follow our rules.
That's everyone's money. A government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
As long as you celebrate America.
You know the rest. In the books you have read, how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball from behind each fence and farmyard wall.
Chasing the redcoats down the lane, then crossing the fields to emerge again. Under the trees at the turn of the road, and only pausing to fire and load.
Yes, you know the rest. What began 250 years ago today was carried on through brutal warfare in Massachusetts. The British saw the Minutemen resolve, that courage first displayed on April 19. So the King's forces withdrew to New York, while American patriots gathered in Philadelphia.
To declare once and for all their solemn purpose. Each one who attached his name to their declaration on July 4th, 1776, had every reason to regard that act of signing as his own death warrant.
The Declaration of Independence. Most Americans, Americans like you, my friend, you and your swarm of Trump-appointed regulars, fail to realize that the mythic July 4th proclamation goes far beyond the sweet opening lines, when in the course of human events, we hold these truths to be self-evident, to a blistering and profoundly treasonous litany of accusations hurled at King George III himself. These words in that solemn declaration are themselves the revolution. And these words are addressed now to you and your ilk. But read the charges afresh and hear us. We, the people, repeat these indictments of a king to hear them echo down through the centuries as indictments for today.
The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
Fact. The king has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good.
Fact. Your president declared, quote, "He who saves his country does not violate any law," end quote. His Supreme Court preemptively agrees with him. Or, if not, then as his vice president proposes, echoing Andrew Jackson, he can dare the court to try and enforce its ruling.
Fact. King George has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people.
Fact. Your president dissolves the 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, declaring that there are, quote, methods for him to run for a third term as president. He adds, I'm not joking.
Fact. King George has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for the purpose of obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners.
Fact. Your president, by executive order, guts the 14th Amendment, declaring the end of birthright citizenship for persons born in the United States.
Fact. King George has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers.
Fact. Your president fired inspectors general across 18 federal agencies. His Secretary of Defense fired the Judge Advocates General of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, charged with flagging violations of military law up to and including war crimes.
Fact. King George has erected a multitude of new offices, has sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people.
Fact. Under your president, tens of thousands have been fired, millions humiliated, agencies shuttered, the privacy of citizens violated, national security breached, all carried out by swarms of, who are you again? You call yourselves regulars, do you?
Oh, fact. King George has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislature.
The Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, the Proud Boys, the Guardians of Liberty, the Boogaloo Movement, your militias.
Fact. King George cuts off our trade with parts of the world.
Fact. Your president imposes punitive tariffs on America's most stalwart allies.
Fact. King George transports us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
Fact. Your president orders the transformation of Naval Station Guantanamo Bay into an effective concentration camp for up to 30,000 migrants. And if that's not enough, there is also Beyond the Seas, the torture mega prison in El Salvador, which holds 40,000.
Fact. King George abolishes the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries.
Fact, your president makes imperialist threats aimed at Mexico, Canada, Panama, and Greenland.
Not to mention, but it must be mentioned, Gaza. Your president speaks wistfully of transferring the entire population of the Gaza Strip to God knows where. The Gaza Riviera, a Trump beach resort, also known as a Trump war crime. A mere fantasy, you say? No. A legitimatizing of ethnic cleansing.
And one final fact from King George. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent be obtained.
Fact. Your president ordered the end of New York automobile tolling program, published a magazine cover of himself wearing an ermine fur and a crown, and cheered, "Congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king."
There you have it, friend. From Donald Trump himself, the king. And no, as all this evidence makes clear, he is not joking.
So, from the Declaration of Independence up to the record of this WDA staged reading, the verdict of history is already clear. Ordinary people took on the king, and ordinary people must do so again.
The regulars are coming. The regulars are coming.
The fate of a nation was riding that night.
250 years ago, we stood together.
Ordinary people taking on the king.
We refuse.
The
We
regulars
resist.
are coming. The regulars are coming for you and for you.
And perhaps we should make this thing crystal clear.
You're
fired.
You got that?
You're right.
You're fired. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence,
So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear.
we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
A voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo forevermore. For, born on the night wind of the past, through all our history to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere.
Set the stage, bring out a couple of chairs, and I want to introduce to you, bring out onto the stage, here he is. Thank you, Chris. And who's our awesome. Great.
How many of these are?
Just two here.
Okay. Yeah, you do it.
Let me bring out onto the stage and introduce you to Jim Carroll. And we have We have a microphone ready to be deployed into the audience to field your questions and your comments. Who'd like to, Jim, you want to get the ball rolling?
Sure.
Talk to us.
Well, first of all, my friends, what an honor to be with you this afternoon. Moral clarity requires refusal. Solidarity is our hope. And you embody that this afternoon. So thank you so much for being here. And I need to, of course, begin by thanking Jeff, the stalwart center of this theater for decades now, and also of this tradition of bringing art to the service of justice. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.
The folks at the Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater, strong support. So grateful to Chris Ostrom and also our dear friend Kevin Rice, who's a backer of this production. Thank you very much, Chris and Kevin. And I have to add my voice to Jeff's, a stalwart cast, wonderful people. Amanda Collins, David Frioli, Carol Lynn, Lewis Wheeler, Bates Wilder. One more time for them. Please stand up. Please stand up.
And I'll just say, Bates loves playing the heavy. It's not him at all, but you knew that. He wouldn't be here otherwise. Anyway.
Well, I don't want to, I've actually had the privilege of saying what I think already, but I would like to just acknowledge that this is the first time I've actually heard this script articulated in public. And I would just say, of course, there was not one word of it that was new to anybody here. We may not remember in detail the litany of complaint at the end of the Declaration of Independence, but we know about it. But to have had brought together the in the voices of the actual human beings who are being most grievously affected by it, the wounds being inflicted, not just on our democracy, but on countless individual men and women and children who are being made to suffer in ways that we can hardly appreciate or reckon with. To have it all brought together in one space, that range of suffering from the unemployed ranger at the park, to the veteran, to the refugee, to the kidnapped green card holder, and of course, how do we even get our imaginations around this? The millions of human beings across the world who are now literally dying of hunger because of this phenomenon against which we've come to stand today. To have it all within the brackets of one recitation is an astonishment. That almost makes you want to say there are no words for this. But for me, that's the revelation of the return on this anniversary, this very day, 250 years ago, the astonishment of the return to the ordinary men and women, people so much like us, who responded to their version of a moment like this, and then, amazingly enough, did what we have yet to actually do, which is that they found words with which to express their experience and their objection and what they were refusing. And we are now, at this point, in these 3 months, so aware of the lack of proper words for what we're experiencing. And to have an invitation from our own most sacred document, the Declaration of Independence, to return to those words and to hear those accusations directed into the face of the king, a litany, a dozen objections, and by some almost mystical accident, hasn't Donald Trump matched almost every one of them? An astonishment, a kind of prophetic warning for us in the experience of the men and women who established the tradition that we're desperately trying to rescue now and to protect. And how do we do that? We do that exactly by this, coming together, saying what we're seeing and experiencing and feeling, saying no to it, and finding in each other's presence the strength we need to dare to do so. So, thank you again for being here. Please now put into words.
Well said. Well spoken.
Please now put into words your experience of these days and this condition to which we're all responding. The microphone is available, and I think we'll depend on Jeff to call people
like
out.
Yes.
Hello, hello. Good. I feel like I want to stand up to say what I want to say. My name is Avery Revere, and hello, hello. That better? Okay. Avery Revere. Paul Revere was my great, 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 great grandfather. You guys make me feel really good. I have so many things to say. I'm gonna talk for a few minutes. I think maybe more than I should. But I did spend yesterday at the Paul Revere House, and it was an amazing experience for so many reasons. But the number of people that were there celebrating the man who is a folk hero was just remarkable and really moving to be part of that. But I came here today because, like all of us, I have so many questions. Like, where do we go? What do we do? What's the next move? Who, how, what, what? And I really loved all of this. And you gave us something else to get mad at, which is perfect. And I know I'm sure almost everybody in this room is reading Heather Cox Richardson, and what she wrote this morning, what she spoke last night at the Old North Church is, they are the words to live by. And I guess that my feeling after this week is, thank goodness for Harvard University. Anyway, I also, just last thing, I was just in Hyannis. I live in Barnstable, and at the Rotary, at the airport Rotary, we had another big demonstration. I had my sign, it's in my car, spread the alarm. And thank you for writing this and performing this. So.
If you don't mind, I won't stand up. But I just wanted to.
Chris, can we get
hear
a
me?
little more volume on the wireless?
Can you
right
hear me now?
Right on your
Okay.
mouth.
So all I wanted to say was, very early in the regime that we're suffering under, there was, I can't remember the details, there was some little protest that was suggested by somebody, and it required, maybe it was writing letters, or I don't remember what it was. But a very good friend who's very much on our wavelength said, no, he said, that's not going to amount to anything. Why do that? And they said, you do that because it's an opportunity to express yourself, and it might gather a little bit of strength among the kind of people who feel this way. And that's what I think, that every time there's an opportunity to stand up, to speak up, to yell, to really say some, articulate and excoriating things, whether in public or on Facebook or whatever, you seize that opportunity. But the nicest thing, the best thing, is when people come together like this, and that's why I was looking forward to this, because being here with all these people in real time, not in virtual time, really does fill you up and inspire you. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you very much for this great performance.
Thank you, John.
Hello, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm Candace Perry. I live here in Wellfleet. I don't know Bates, is that your first name? And I have to tell you, I was terrified. He was sitting right behind me. I really had to think, what am I going to do? And there could be people who would come to this who don't agree with us, who would hiss and boo and scream and yell or do worse. And it was just an opportunity to kind of think about it, and I'm afraid I don't have a great answer, but I know I would have asked the people sitting around me to help, and that's the main thing. And so thank you for that opportunity, and though you made my heart beat a little too hard for a while there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann Walsh, and I live down the road in Brewster. And I want to say that I'm the mother of Boseman. I'm so proud of him. I want to claim him as my kin. I am, I imagine he's really scared when he closes his door, if he has people that he loves around him. I really connect a lot with how afraid I was during the Vietnam War of sending a message that I didn't love my family. By my protesting, I might be sending a message that I didn't love my family. And I think now, all these years later, my family is finally really proud of what I did in Vietnam. It wasn't a pound of flesh or anything like that. I could have lost that one. But, it's really important to slough off fear and be brave. That's the most important thing I think I learned all these years later.
Kathleen Bacon. First to Jeff, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And thank you, James. This was really, brilliant. I grew up close to the battleground of Concord in Lexington, so Paul Revere has always been a folk hero near and dear to my heart. I'm hoping my next license plate on my car says, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. I'll have to figure that out. But the tyranny of what's happening now is global, and we all know it's going to have a very long-term global effect. I don't get over the bridge much, so for me, it's local. And what is the trickle down for this small community that I call home? I'm fearful that we're going to lose the Cape Cod National Seashore, that the Seashore Advisory Commission, which has just come back to the table, a representative from each town on the Cape sits with the superintendent once a month. Fearful that that's going to be, disbanded again. Wellfleet's in the throes of finishing one of the largest infrastructure projects in the country right now, which is the Herring River Restoration Project. And as you all know, NOAA has been defunded. We're at 69% completion on that project. I'm worried about, how we, how this is going to affect us. But I really appreciated, the juxtaposition and thank you.
My name's Jean. The last time there was a presentation like this, I said my greatest fear was that Trump would be elected and declare martial law. And what would we do? We seem to be getting closer. And I'm asking you, what do we do if martial law is declared?
Jim, what do we do?
Well, thank you for giving me the chance to say again, we do this. We do this. Solidarity is our hope. And I would just point out, you may know this already, but Writers for Democratic Action, which is a nationwide organization of almost 4,000 people, sponsoring this reading. It's happening right now, today, this afternoon, this evening. Pittsburgh, Salem, a church, a theater in Chicago, a group in Texas called Mothers Against Greg Abbott, MAGA. Pittsburgh, it's being done soon in Concord itself, or there are plans being laid soon in New York. Solidarity, we're talking gatherings in bars and churches and theaters. And ours is a little piece of what's happening in this country right now. Town Center in Eastham, Hyannis, as we just heard. Last week, Boston Common, cities all over the country. Solidarity is our hope. We're being conscripted. We're being conscripted into this struggle. And we've actually been given such a fantastic model of how to respond, which is Paul Revere and the men and women who woke up because of him and the others who issued that alarm. So now we're all waking up. What do? We do this. We do this. Harvard was helped to its important and courageous stand by the clumsiness and foolishness of the demands made on them by the ever more incompetent government. But they were also helped, no doubt, by the solidarity of the folks that gathered in Cambridge Common a few days before Harvard shaped its response. What do? We do this. Other comments, questions?
I just want to say something about, I want to sort of harken back to the Vietnam War protests. And I was 18 in 1968. I had a student deferment, that I guess it got me through the years when I was vulnerable to the draft. But in that time, when the Vietnam anti-war movement was just getting going, I remember my father, Howard Zinn, who began speaking at gatherings on Boston Common. And the very first gatherings that he spoke at only drew probably as many people as are in this room today. They were very small. And they kept coming back, and he kept coming back, I think, weekly. And after a period of time, there were tens of thousands of people demonstrating on Boston Common and all over the country. And that movement grew and grew and grew, and it made a difference. And it feels like, it seems sometimes as though the powers that be, could care less. They're sort of shrugging it off, but they're not. It does make a difference. And Jim shared something with me yesterday. Maybe I'll say it badly, but something about the loaf is rising, right? And we are the loaf, and we are rising. There's another and kneading. We're kneading and rising. There's another Vietnam piece that I just want to mention. My good friend Brendan Hughes has created a podcast called Divine Intervention, which tells the story of his mother and father. His father was Patrick Hughes, who was in seminary with were you in seminary together? And it's a story of a ragtag band of priests and nuns who organized for guerrilla actions against draft boards in those days, and they literally broke into local draft boards and destroyed records and evaded capture, and by destroying those records, they prevented them from drafting X numbers of young men. And as I'm listening to this, and it's so inspiring, and it's just ordinary people who are with very few resources. And I was wondering as I was listening, and I urge you to listen to it. It's Divine Intervention, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, whatever. What would the equivalent action be today? I mean, what could we do? Where's the draft board that we can break into and destroy records? I mean, what is that? It's much harder now, today, to do something like that. But it's an open, I don't have the answer, but maybe one of you can come up with it. What do we do? Bake bread. Who else?
Hi.
Thank you.
My name is Martha Gold, and
Up to your lips, Martha.
my name is Martha Gold,
Thank
and my husband and I and all of our friends have been asking these same questions. What can we do? And here we're in a room filled with people who feel the same way. And the question is, how do you push the people who don't quite feel this way yet? And what are the things that we can do that bring the worry to them? You know, one of the things in a locality that seems useful to consider is to think about what jobs and what money is disappearing, and to make the argument that those things are no longer in communities where there are people with different partisan views, but to bring it home. And I think that if we could do a lot of that across the country, that would be a very useful starting point to begin to galvanize, because we need to grow the crowds of people who are willing to come out. One of the fantasies I had, you know, it's a small thing, but I thought about the COVID clanging of the pots every night at 7 o'clock in New York City during the epidemic. And something just like that, where people could easily announce their dissatisfaction on a regular basis. It seems like it might be a useful thing to do. I know it wouldn't work so well here on the Cape. We're a little, you know, further out. But we're just trying to think of ideas. I'm in the world of medicine. I think I've just watched HHS be completely disseminated. Not disseminated, you're right. Decimated, thank you. And I just think, well, could we bring medical professionals together, you know, in great swarms to say what this is doing to the country? I mean, it seems like everybody has a little area that they can work in, and I think we really all have to work. Gathering here is wonderful because it makes us know and remember and gives us words, but we need to figure out what the actions are.
Testing. I just found out I was coming to this about an hour ago or before. I just came down from the great state of Maine that used to be part of Massachusetts. It was peeled off in 1860, the Missouri Compromise and all that stuff. And I just want to say how proud we are in Maine of Janet T. Mills, the governor of the state of Maine. If you live in Maine, you know Janet Mills. You've met Janet Mills because she's an incredibly gregarious person. I don't think she's 5 feet tall. She's a good lawyer, and when you think about what common people do, a governor isn't a common person, but a lot of them sure are, but Janet Mills isn't. And to see her in that White House, sitting at that table, minding her own business, I'm sure casting a cold eye on what was in front of the room with a sense of humor such as she has. When he targeted her, when Trump targeted little Janet Mills, threatened her career, her political career, threatened the state of Maine with defunding programs. She did this. She waved her hand and said, "See you in court," which is one of the most amazing things. I think we should all take courage. She did that 30 days after he took office. She did that on February 20th or 21st. And I do think it changed the temperature. I do think it was one of those moments that we can all take courage from. I do think it has motivated this, the resistance tremendously. And I just wanted to say how proud we are of her in the state of Maine. They tried to peel us apart by attacking the smallest minority, the trans community in Maine, where we have 2 high school transgendered athletes, and this is what it's all about. And she has stood by them without any care for political benefit to herself. And I just wanted to say how grateful and proud we are in the state of Maine for her and her example, which I do think ignited many people in the rest of the country. So there we go.
My friend, I want to thank you, especially thank you for that and lifting up Governor Mills. And I'm also happy to tell you that this simple play is being given a stage reading in Camden, Maine today.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Boswell, and I moved here from Lexington, Massachusetts, where every morning on April 19th I was awoken by musket fire. And one of the things that I really liked about what I heard today is the comparison to the Declaration of Independence. And my hope is that this will be in written form somewhere where we can take it and use it and read it in schools and elsewhere, because I think that is so much more helpful than calling this asshole Hitler. No matter how close the comparisons are, that's inflammatory, and I'm the daughter of someone who got out of Germany saying that. So I really like what you did. And I hope we can get it in a form where we can propagate it. Thank you.
It's in that form now, ma'am. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Please just go to the Writers for Democratic Action website, click under Initiatives, and you'll see the Democracy Theater Project. And right there is the entire script. It's free. It's easily downloadable. There are other resources available on that website. It's yours, and please use it.
I just wanted to ask relatedly whether, I know this was broadcast, has it been taped? Can we make this available beyond the places that it's been read?
Yes. The recording of this will be on the YouTube channel where it's being live streamed now. So you'll be able to visit it, and you can share that link with other people if you want to do that. The whole thing will be there. Yeah.
My name is Martha Wilson. I live here in Wellfleet. And I want to thank Jeff for this, because 16 years ago, Jeff might remember this, in November, he opened up this theater on election evening. And there was so much energy in this theater that evening that on the inauguration day, Jeff opened up the theater again so we could all be here. And I reflect on the fact that, you know, the entire theater was waving as the helicopter took off with Mr. Bush inside, former president. And yet, when I look, regardless of whether you're Democratic or Republican or what your ilk is, at least at that point in time, we had some leadership in the White House that had some decorum and had some morals. And today we don't have that, and we don't have anything for young people to look up to. And I hope that Jeff continues to do that here and continues to provide a forum like that he has over the years.
Thank you, Martha. One more?
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Irene Nelson, here with my husband Roger and son RJ. We live here in Wellfleet, and was one of the people to go to the demonstration in Eastham this morning. It was wonderful to be among people of all ages, including some really young people who were singing their hearts out, and we joined in with them. And most of the people going by were very supportive, honking and waving. There were a few of the others that stepped on the ignition and let clouds of emissions come into our lungs. But the majority of people were very supportive. One of my signs that I made up was my own thoughts that I've had for a long time, was just made up. It says, triumph over Trump. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to triumph with all our energy and strength that we can muster. And so I'm very proud to be part of this group of people who are here. And thank you for giving us this chance. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I say a
Yes,
word?
Absolutely.
Jeff made passing reference to his dear father, Howard. We can't gather in Wellfleet to declare our resistance without accepting the blessing of Howard Zinn, who meant so much to so many of us. And I've been thinking a lot about Howard lately, and there are two things about him. One of the questions, of course, always is, what was it about Howard Zinn that made him so magical as a man of resistance, a man calling others to difficult actions, speaking truths that were hard to hear sometimes? What was it that made him so really irresistible? And I've come to, there are many things, but I've come to two that I value most about my memory of Howard. The first is, this is going to seem a little strange. He was so kind. In those years, radicals weren't famous for being kind. There was a hard edge about protest that made a lot of people nervous. And Howard Zinn always represented a different response. There was something so deeply kind about Howard Zinn. And who would have imagined that there would come a point in our nation's life when kindness could seem like a simple political strategy. What else does the cruelty of our government cry out for but a massive response of kindness? Firm, resolute, strong, resisting, but kind. By goodness, by God, kind. The other thing about Howard, of course, and you all remember this, and Jeff emphasizes this about his father, was hope. And Jeff made reference to that at the early stage of the anti-war movement. Howard never lost hope, and he was always more clear-minded about the challenge and the difficulty of speaking up for justice and peace than anyone else. He knew how hard it was. We know how hard it is. What is the source of our hope? It is this solidarity. And we're all capable, if we choose to, of leaving this room with hope for what's ahead, even though we can't predict it. So let my last word be a word repeated from before. Thank you so much for your kindness and for your hope, which reinforces mine in ways that I'm so grateful for.